Welcome to Long Live Baseball. Today on the program, we'll talk about how the Cardinals have won 4 out of their last 5, but they're still a bad baseball team for now.
For now.
We'll also talk about that team from, what is it, the north side or the south side or the west side? Where are you guys from anyway in Chicago?
The north side, thank you very much.
Those north siders, we'll talk about them, I guess. Well, also, there's so much going on. There's bird baths. I can't believe the Cardinals haven't thought of the bird bath yet. How is that not our thing? The bird bath,
Especially in St. Louis, where it's like, humidity. I don't know why anyone would want to go there to try to enjoy a baseball game. Sometimes beyond my comprehension.
We have to. Next time we go, we have to check out this rooftop section that I found.
Hey, do they have? Speaking of rooftop, do they have a in St. Louis? Do they have air conditioning in that stadium in that facility?
In certain spots, yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Anyway, so today, we're talking about the bird bath. Cedric Mullins hit a cycle. We'll talk about that. Tampa Bay. With this guy, I don't know if you've heard of him, Randy Arozarena. Tampa Bay is 30-10, unbelievable. Good for them. Good for baseball. God bless baseball. But how are you doing today, Mike? I haven't talked to you in a while.
Yeah, hey, doing great, man. The Cubs just went up to Minnesota, and everybody's like, "Oh, Minnesota, they're pretty good. They're pretty good," and they win 6-2 with some timely hitting. Can't complain about that. So the Cardinals won their first series of the year against us at Wrigley. But we scored, more runs than they did in the whole series. So that's something we can take away from that. And, the bats just went silent for a little while there, it happens. It's baseball, right?
Yeah. That's probably a good spot to start with. The Cardinals do take 2 out of 3 in the first series at Wrigley, and kind of shocking, to be honest with you, because heading into that series, I know they had won a game. Before that they were on an 8-game losing streak, right? And
so they were due. It's just like hitting.
I guess so, but it doesn't make it any less surprising. And even that series, so the first game of the series, right, was Stroman versus Michaelis. And if you look at the stats, right, Michaelis doesn't even pitch. He pitches 4 1/3 innings. He does strike out 7. But the bullpen was outstanding. Jordan Hicks coming out of nowhere, two innings for Jordan Hicks. Who would have thunk? And then Ryan Helsley. I feel like Ryan Helsley, I don't have the stat pulled up, but Ryan Helsley has to lead Major League Baseball in inning plus saves. I feel like the bullpen is being extended so much with our starting pitching, because the starting pitching, it's a theme here, is still a problem for the Cardinals because they're not going deep into the games. And guess what? That puts a huge strain on your bullpen.
And meanwhile, the Cubs still have 2 pitchers who are in the top 5 for quality starts on the season, with Marcus Stroman and Justin Steele. And of course, Drew Smyly he's got to be close behind. Like you said, I don't have the stats pulled up right now, but pitching has been the strength of one of the strengths of the Cubs this year.
So the Cardinals in game 1, that's the Contreras game. That's the Contreras heel turn, where he came back and he went 2 for 4 with a couple RBIs, and basically led the Cardinals after the weird decision, which we'll talk about later, of him not catching any not in the recent future. So the Cardinals took game 1. They also took game 2 6-4. And Mike, if you want to interject at any moment, you can to talk about it. But Jack Flaherty again. Jack Flaherty, 5 innings pitched. So we're not, again, here's the theme. Starting pitchers not going deep into ball games, not conducive to long-term success, which, the quality starts that the Cubs are getting, that's bodes well for them in the future, for the long grind of a 162 game season. And so again, you have guys going. I mean, Palante pitching an inning and 2/3. Chris Stratton's an underrated player, very good pitcher out of the bullpen. And then Gallegos in game 2 gets the save. And then, so even the Cardinals winning a series is weird because then in the third game, they have their best pitcher on the mound, and you're thinking, wow, our chances of a sweep are pretty good, I would think. I mean, this is about as good as you can hope for. And then Montgomery goes out there and lays a stinker, gives up 6 earned runs in 5 innings. Again, we don't have a starter going longer than 5 innings ever, it seems. Same deal last night with Wainwright. And we'll talk more about we can talk about last night's game too. But Montgomery gets beat up, and then Verhagen comes in, gives up 3 runs, and then, it just kind of implodes at the end, and you can't really have a series win. It's their first series win of the season without it being weird. It's just been a weird year, and I'm happy. Don't get me wrong. I'm happy the Cardinals won the series. I'm happy the Cardinals have won 4 out of their last 5. But it still feels like there's a lot of problems with this roster, especially when you look at the fielding Bible and their defensive efficiency. It's alarming that they're not very good anymore defensively, which I thought.
How does that happen when you say not anymore? I mean, what, does that mean they were ever good? I don't, these guys are professional baseball players. That's the part that is so intriguing to me. They talk about, with the Cubs, they talk about how we've got an improved defense, and our defense is much improved, but look at the turnover in players that we've had, right? I mean, we've got a lot of guys that are coming in on 1-year contracts and things of that nature. We're moving Nick Madrigal all over the field, seemingly. He's been playing a little bit of third. He's in second. Of course, the downside of the Cardinals-Cubs series for us was losing Nico Horner, who was day-to-day until yesterday, and now is on the 10-day IL with a minor hamstring pull. You can't – those hamstring pulls, man, you got to – rest is the only thing, right? I mean, I know they've got other professionals working on him and that kind of thing. So that was tough to see. But so I'm glad we've got that depth with, Madrigal, Wisdom, Christopher Morel gets called up, and he's still, continuing his kind of tear that he was on in AAA, showing as I think, I can't remember if it was an executive or Rossi who said, he's basically, when they called him up, he said he's too good for that league. And so kind of Jordan Walker-esque. I mean, Jordan Walker's kind of Christopher Morel-esque, I guess, from my perspective. Here's a good player. I mean, international player of the month, all that kind of stuff. But losing Horner was not a good thing. But thankfully, Morel comes in and fills in the gap. I mean, in the last game of that Cardinals-Cubs series, Morel had 4 at-bats. He had a run and 2 hits and 2 RBIs, coming up from AAA just a couple days earlier, where he didn't even play. I don't even think he played in the first game. He may have had an at-bat. I don't remember. But now I think he's leading off. I mean, he's stepped in the leadoff position. So, yeah, fun to watch. It was a good series. I wish the weather would have been a little nicer.
Yeah, aside from the last game was kind of a blowout. But those first 2 games, I mean, really could have gone either way. And, I mean, there were moments where you felt like the Cubs had a chance to come back. And, I mean, really kind of looking at this Cardinals team from afar, I tweeted out last night. And, I mean, now I'm going to transition us, good. First of all, Cardinals win, baby. Take the first series. We'll never not be happy about that. I mean, you can't take those for granted. It's tough to win a series at Wrigley Field for sure. But moving on to last night's game, and I tweeted this out last night, is like, the Cardinals are a bad baseball team. And what I should have probably said is right now. Like, they're a bad baseball team right now. It was nice
in
to
this
see.
Exact moment when they were trailing, they had just given up the lead when you tweeted that out, right?
Yeah. Well, yeah. I mean, it's just terrible. Terrible baseball. I mean, what's his face? The left-handed Genesis Cabrera had just They were up by a run, and he walked literally like the first two batters. I think he walked the bases low, or he walked the first two batters and gave up a then give up a double, and that tied the game. And then they have to bring in Helsley. Is either that something happened. Anyway, they left him in way too long. You can see Ollie Marmol in the dugout going, "Here we go again." You know, the facial expressions are just terrible, and he's. I think you know, if you had to ask him, I wonder if he's thinking, "Ooh, do we bring Helsley in for another multi-inning save?" Like, because Helsley's a stud, man. Helsley was throwing 102, 103 miles an hour last night with a slider that was just falling off. I mean, Helsley's one of the best closers in base. So the Cardinals, they're such a weird team, and Arenado had a great game last night, hit a home run. So
you said something about him being back, right? Was it Arenado or Goldschmidt?
Well, the Cardinals, they have all these pieces, right? It's such a strange thing. Arenado had a great game. Goldschmidt is having another great year. And they have all these young players. Brendan Donovan, Nolan Gorman hit the 2-run home run last night to go ahead. Wasn't in the starting lineup, by the way. Wasn't in the starting lineup because you got to play. You got to find some time for all these Juan Yepez, Willson Contreras, and we'll talk more about him. But it's playing DH, Willson Contreras. It's such a weird team. It's good. We have a good closer. We have good position players, some of the best position players in all of baseball, but we don't have the starting pitching. We don't have an ace. We have a bunch of fine starting pitchers who, could go in either direction, but they're not consistent. It's nice to have Wainwright back because at least Wainwright gives you a little bit of consistency. He's not going to go deep into a game anymore, so he's kind of more of the same. Gives up 4 runs in 5 innings last night, but at least he's not going to just completely balloon like Jack Flaherty's been doing recently. So I don't know what to say. I think is a nice come from behind win, but it was, again, along with the theme of the Cardinals season, strangeness. I mean, it's such a strange way to get to a win when the guy who should have been in the lineup, who wasn't in the lineup because you have a weird roster clog, and even more of a roster clog than you had at the beginning of the season because of Willson Contreras, and now in the DH, the guy who should have been in the lineup who wasn't hits the go-ahead home run. And yeah, it's great, but you're still sitting there wondering, God, how are we going to optimize this roster? And you would think that there's got to be a trade that needs to be made, but I don't see that coming anytime soon.
Well, according to Twitter, they're pulling up some guy named Cruz, I think, if I'm not mistaken.
Cruz?
I don't know.
I haven't heard.
Or trading for. Anyway. Yeah, I don't know. There was I think it was a tongue-in-cheek Twitter move about Mozeliak or whatever. But I don't know. There was a pitcher that did not do well for the Cardinals, I think, back in the day, and so they were saying they were going to pull him back into the swing of things as a move.
I saw the Lance Lynn thing. I saw the Lance Lynn because his ERA is not good with the White Sox right now. It's from what I don't follow the White Sox religiously, but So yeah, it's a strange team, but and I don't really. I mean, don't get me wrong. I'm happy that they're doing better, but it's still. I mean, they're still 14 and 23. I mean, you got to start digging your way out of that somehow. But
go
ahead.
When you say better, you mean they've won 1 in a row, right? They're 4 for 6 over their last 10. That's what you mean by better, right?
Yeah, they won. Yeah, they've won 4 out of their last 5.
Listen, can we just talk about this? And I mean, I almost even hate to say it, especially after the Cubs win yesterday. I mean, honestly, going into Minnesota, I was like, oh, we're going to find out what we're really about, and then we come away with 6-2 win. My dad's a Twins fan, and I haven't spoken to him yet today. Of course, I don't know if I'll speak to him all weekend now, but because he's probably, that's not my dad. But when it comes to the Twins, so going into that game, I'm like, is what's going to happen. Like, we're going to find out what we're all about. And as I'm saying all of that, and we come off a 6-2 win, there's that part of me also that says our division sucks. Like the National League Central, there was a time when I think I sent you a message, circled the win-loss column not that long ago, and every team in the division had lost more than 2 games. Like, what was their streak or whatever? Lost 2, lost 2, lost 3, lost 5. And the Cardinals were a part of that at that time. I think it was like lost 7 or something. I mean, and so you're going, how can a division that frankly seemingly has so much talent just not be winning games? I mean, it's kind of strange. The strangeness, the weirdness extends past St. Louis, I guess is what I'm saying. Like, it's something else. But
and you look at the standings. I mean, just to let everybody know, Milwaukee and Pittsburgh are at the top. Milwaukee's in first place now, as Pittsburgh has just, done what we probably should have expected them to do, just completely fallen off. They're 1-9 in their last 10 games, and their run differential is really in line with that of a 500 team. They only have a +7 run differential. And the Milwaukee's in first place. So we might have expected this from Pittsburgh and Cincinnati. I mean, Pittsburgh and Cincinnati have actually been outperforming expectation. The Cubs, the Cardinals, and the Brewers are the 3 teams you thought, I mean, they should be good. And the Cubs, I think, are doing about what you expected them to do. But if you look at the Cubs' run differential right now on MLB, on the standings, it's +52. That's second best in the National League.
Yeah.
And they're a 500 ball club. So you'd think that should correct itself. I mean, just to give everybody context, the Braves are 25-13 leading the NL East, and they have a +56 run differential right now. So, right. I mean, very, very well could be. I mean, the Cubs could be a lot. Their record could be a lot better. And
and in Chicago, I mean, Cubs fans definitely think that's the case. There's a lot of criticism right now of Rossi. Even though he's beloved in Chicago, there have been some really questionable moves. The pontificators. There's been some moves that have just been like, what are we doing here? Like, we're DH-ing Eric Hosmer in this spot. What? Like, why do we have him out there? They're just different things like that. And I can't come up with one specific thing, but there have been at least 4 or 5 games that Cubs fans feel we should have won that game. Like, there's no reason we lost that game. We left the reliever in too long. We, just different little decisions, or who we bat in this circumstance, or why do we have that batter laying down a bunt in that circumstance? Different little things like that are adding up to a little bit of angst in terms of Rossi's managerial. And people are like, he's a seasoned manager now. Well, is he? I mean, what's 3, 4, 5, maybe 5 years, but COVID in that, there's a lot of little funky things that have happened through the years here, but we feel like we should definitely be over 500. I mean, you take 5 games there. What is that? Yeah, there you go. Right. 23-14 and leading the division, and there've been at least 5 games that have been either 1-run games that we feel like, oh, how do we let that one get away? And so, I think the Cubs are better. It's funny because we go back to last year when I was talking about our pitching staff and talking about being underrated and all of those kinds of things. I think the Cubs are better than anybody knows they are yet. I think that they're still gelling at some level in regards to that. And if Rossi makes the smart decisions, they're going to win those 1-run games moving forward. It's like the game that I was at, the double game that I was at. It was so Sunday afternoon, 14 innings, singing the stretch twice in a game, which was just a blast. But then we lost it on a balk. I mean, it was weird, and that wasn't the only reason we lost it. But we're at home. We should be winning that game. We should have found a way to win that game. We had plenty of base runners on. We're leaving a lot of runners on base. It's unbelievable sometimes how many runners we're leaving on base. And has seemingly been one of our issues for the past, I don't know, 5 years, 6 years. We just keep stranding runners, and at least that's what it feels like to a fan.
Yeah. Just kind of looking at this, I don't know how it's sorted here, but on MLB team rankings, so your inclination, right, is correct, because the teams that rank near the bottom of the league and run on MLB left on base per game, and I don't know if this makes okay, it makes sense. I was thinking of runners in scoring position, but total people left on base.
Yep.
Cubs ranked number 29 in Major League Baseball. And the St. Louis Cardinals ranked number 28 out of 30 teams in Major League Baseball and leaving runners on base. So there you go.
What's the deal with that? Like, does that just become a thing? You know what I mean? Because seemingly that's been my impression of it, is like bases loaded. All right, here we go. We've got a chance. Strikeout, pop up. It's like, what in the world? We've got the bases loaded with no outs. We can't figure out a way to just get one guy in, two guys in, for crying out loud. Now last night against the Twins, it was a closer game than what that 6-2 score alludes to, because, I remember being in the car driving home with my wife and saying, something to the effect of, come on, we could use some insurance runs here, not assurance, but insurance. We could use some insurance runs here. And that's the thing that we haven't had in previous games, like somebody stepping up to the plate and getting a timely base hit when it's needed. And, clutch hitting is the story of the year, I think, both for the Cardinals and the Cubs, in circumstances. So, but we saw that last night, Christopher Morel being one of the guys. He had a 2-run homer that was in the upper deck at Target Field. Oppo taco. I mean, it was, you don't see that kind of power, that kind of home run from a batter. It was something, a sight to see. Let's just put it that way. And then, of course, the other thing for the Cubs right now, I mean, Miles Mastrobuoni. That's what Nico Horner's injury has done to us. Miles Mastrobuoni is now called back up. I'm sorry. I shouldn't even say this. Apologies to Miles. I didn't even know he was still with the organization until he got called up. You know what I mean? So,
yeah.
Anyway.
Well, Miles, between Miles Mastrobuoni and Taylor Motter, there's got to be a good fantasy baseball team name in there.
Oh, God.
So I don't, it's crazy with all the depth that the Cardinals have. I mean, I don't know about the Cubs. I mean, I assume, you have Morel down there. You have Mervis that you called up. I mean, I think the last time we checked, right, they were number 11 in the prospects, right? Their farm system was ranked number 11 in Major League Baseball, which it's astounding that the strides that the Cubs have made in that department, because just a few years ago we were talking about them as near the bottom of the league, and there are teams like the Royals that I don't understand how you're so bad and how your farm system's so bad. And pour one out for all the Kansas City Royals fans around here, because it really feels like for the next 5 years they're just not going to be very good. And that's what bad drafting and bad scouting can do, and it's all about team building. We could talk this for an hour about this. It's like when you're drafting and developing talent, you almost don't have to be worried about positions right away. I mean, pitching obviously is probably the most important position. developing pitchers, which the Cubs have seemingly found a way to do, that's probably the most important thing.
Right.
That's something the Cardinals haven't done. I mean, there might be. I mean, Graceffo could be good. Tink Hence could be good. Michael McGreevy could be good. We still have Matthew Liberatore down in AAA, so we have some guys that are down there right now. But you have to continually feed the machine. You have to continually bring up these guys and develop them, because you never want to be in a position that the Cardinals are in right now and needing starting pitching and not having it. Same thing with the Cubs. It's like it's amazing how you can have these holes on your roster, and it's nothing against the Miles Mastrobonis of the world, but it's like, why are we bringing up Taylor Motter? Why are we bringing up Miles Mastroboni? Don't we have somebody better than that? I don't understand. This is something, and it's astounding to me that these things still happen in the MLB. You know, you just, as a fan, you look at it and you go, I know that guy doesn't. I mean, nothing against these guys, right? But I don't know if he belongs playing every day. Like we're trying to force a square peg into a round hole here. It kind of feels like, and that feels like it's just a lack of depth at certain positions.
Well, and that's the interesting piece. I mean, you talk. I don't understand. It's interesting to me how when you talk about the prospects, like Pete Crow Armstrong walked one off the other day with a shot into the gap off the wall. Casey Owen, who played in the World Baseball Classic, is tearing the cover off the ball. You have all these guys down in the minors, and then so you wonder. It makes you wonder, like, what is the call up routine? Like, how are those decisions made when that kid is ready for the bigs? You know, I would love to be in the inner workings of how does that work, because it's a tough thing to understand. Because part of it, I hate to say it, is almost I'll use the word political, but it's revenue driven is really what it is, right? I mean, the Chris Bryant situation, right? We're sending him down, all that kind of stuff. Well, what really? I mean, that's how we're making decisions about wins and losses. Obviously, that worked out for the Cubs in 2016, right? But
and it's totally different now. The teams are incentivized to bring up their guys basically as soon as possible, because I think something like if they win Rookie of the Year, they get compensation or something. I don't know. Like I'd have to double check that, but essentially, like the Chris Bryant thing is a thing of the past, which is why you saw the Cardinals bring up Jordan Walker the way they did, and we were talking about it before the show. How hilarious is that? I mean, we were talking about who were you? You're the guy from the Marlins. We were talking about. His name escapes me right now. He was called up, and they had a video, and that seems to be the new thing, is these videos, right?
Yeah.
That they have the secret cameras, and the Cardinals made one for Jordan Walker, and just how silly does that look right now when that seemed to be he had a great spring, had a great start, and we've talked about it before, the first sign of trouble and you send him down, and that either points to the fact that your plan was bad or you didn't have one with Jordan Walker, you know, because you probably knew that the possibility of that happening was really high. Anyway, to your point,
Yuri
there's a good point to be made that, can you say, did the Cardinals bring up Jordan Walker to put more butts in seats? Because he's a hot prospect, right?
Well, and
I don't know.
That seems to be the number one statistic for the St. Louis Cardinals right now. That's something also that you tweeted out, number 2 in attendance in the country.
It's crazy. What other fan base does that? Seriously, they stink.
Right.
They're a bad baseball team. They're in last place. They They just went on an 8-game losing streak, and yet you have 39,000 people routinely showing up at the ballpark. No, I'm sorry. No other fan base is doing that. Not the Cubs. Not anybody. Like the Dodgers. The Dodgers, I guess, but the Dodgers aren't a bad team, right? The
Right.
Dodgers, where are the Dodgers? They're at top of the NL West.
Yeah.
I bet if those people, if the Dodgers started losing, the attendance would fall off.
Yeah. But to the do you think so?
Yeah, I
Yeah.
bet so.
Yeah.
There's so much to do in LA.
Yeah. But yeah, that's true. But and there's and St. Louis is boring. So that speaks to it. That's probably why people are going to the losing club's ballpark, and they get to ride the escalators. So, that's fun. There's things like that they can do, and they can eat and stuff, go to Ballpark Village.
Yeah.
All that kind of stuff.
I guess Chicagoans can't be bothered to go to, what is it? The national landmark?
Listen, the federally recognized land. Yeah, it's a federally
they can't be bothered to, because they're in the TikTok age. They're in the TikTok shiny toy age where baseball, you got to put a sports book in there. You got to what's the latest thing? Baseball's not enough to hold our attention anymore. We can't. The Cubs aren't going to win the Central. We can't be bothered. We're not going to go.
Yeah. Are there any batting cages in Ballpark Village? Oh, no, there's a mechanical bull, which we'll share a video of that at some time on the show. But no batting cages, like at Sluggers outside of Wrigley. Anyway, and besides, it's still 32 degrees in Chicago. I mean, it snowed yesterday. Give me a break. You've got air conditioning turned on at the St. Louis ballpark, whatever that.
It's
did I just say ballpark? Stadium.
You Freudian slip there, ballpark.
No doubt, Freudian slip. So anyway, Yuri Perez, we were talking about him a second ago in the call up video, and Sandy Alcantara, last year's Cy Young Award winner, I believe, and who came and threw BBs at Wrigley Field, by the way. He had a good game at Wrigley. Really pitched well, I thought. But Yuri Perez was the Marlins' number one prospect, and he got number one prospect. Got called up by one of these hidden camera videos in the manager's dugout or manager's office. We're calling you in to tell you that we're gonna move you up to the next level. We knew we weren't going to keep you here long at AA, and so the AAA club up in, I don't know who the Marlins AAA club, Jacksonville. Before we send you up there, we have this video we want you to watch, and here's Sandy Alcantara on there, and he basically speaking in the native tongue of Yuri Perez, and tells him, hey, he's really looking forward to being next to him, every day and all of that. And so he gets the big call up, and Yuri Perez delivers. A 98.1 mile per hour four-seamer for his first strikeout, freezes Tyler Stevenson to end the first inning. This kid's 6'8". 6'8". Can you imagine the angle on this on the ball? He came in, and I think he struck out 7, and he still gave up 2 home runs and that kind of thing. But pretty doggone good debut for a number one prospect coming into the majors.
Yeah, which is a great moment. Don't get me wrong, and I'm happy that they celebrate that, and they should. But just with the Cardinals specifically, sometimes you wonder what they're doing or what their motivations are, because it's such a strange team. And speaking of strangeness, can we talk about strangeness?
Yes, go for it.
All right, because our last episode was very ill-timed because we talked about Willson Contreras, and the discussion was around, is Willson Contreras to blame? I mean, it's one of the videos that I posted on the channel. Is he part of the reason for the struggles of the Cardinals' rotation? And my point was, well, Willson Contreras has only caught, 20 games, 25 games. I think the number might have been 23 at the time. The Cardinals pitchers, if you've been watching them, especially Steven Matz, they aren't locating pitches. They aren't executing the way they should be. Their stuff doesn't look great, if you ask me. So I don't know if it's fair to blame Willson Contreras for that, but it appears as though that's exactly what the Cardinals did. Is they said Willson Contreras needs to get better with calling pitches and handling a pitching staff. And to be fair, these are concerns that I think other teams had with Willson Contreras, and potentially the Cubs also had with Willson Contreras, which is why apparently they weren't interested in re-signing him at all. Like, there were no conversations with Willson Contreras from reports that I've read.
They made a qualifying offer.
Well, okay, but he was clearly looking for a long-term extension, like the one he got with the Cardinals. So,
hey, how long is that contract, by the way?
5 years, $87.5 million, which is the largest contract a non-Cardinal has received from the team. And so, this is what I have to talk about. Okay.
I so want to interrupt, though. I really want to interrupt.
You do a great job of that anyway, so I'm sure you will. So, there's so many problems with this. There's so many problems. First of all, you saw him close to 100 times with the Cubs. If this was a concern, a legitimate concern with you, then you probably shouldn't have signed him in the first place. And Mozeliak gave a bizarre interview with, I think, I can't even, it's off the, I read so much stuff and listen to so much stuff. I listen to Cardinals radio. Bernie Michaelis, this is the source it's coming from. But he gave such a bizarre interview where he almost was looking back on the Sean Murphy trade and going, well, maybe, yeah, like, if we had it all over to do again, they wanted Brendan Donovan. So the A's wanted Brendan Donovan, Lars Nootbaar, and one of our pitching prospects for Sean Murphy. And right now, Sean Murphy is playing outstanding baseball for the Braves right now. So he was talking about, nobody cares about your fantasy team. So they were talking about, you know, that whole situation, and Mozeliak almost alluded to the fact, yeah, you know, like, it kind of would have been nice, you know, kind of sort of dancing around the fact that, ooh, yeah, maybe we should have, but not really saying it, but that kind of bringing up, this is what they were asking for, and we thought the price tag was too high, yada yada yada. But if you think about it now, that would solve a lot of their problems, would it not? If they just would have, you know, traded. Not to say I don't like Brendan Donovan and Lars Nootbaar, because I do, but it would have given them more money to spend on a starting pitcher. It would have cleaned up the roster a little bit. And so instead, they opt to sign Willson Contreras, which at the time, great. It's a void. You haven't had a good offensive catcher for a few years now. Lord knows Andrew Kisner's not doing it, which, thank you for the pronunciation lesson, whoever that was in the comments. Keep those pronunciation lessons coming, because Lord knows we are terrible at it. So they sign him knowing that this is a problem, yet they, for some reason, expected him to be Yadier Molina 2.0. Like, I don't understand. Like, so 23 games into the season, you've already decided, oh yeah, this ain't working out. The guy that we signed to be a catcher to replace Yadier Molina is not catching anymore. What are we doing? So now he's going to be a DH. Okay, well, guess who else is one of the better hitters on your roster who I talked about already? Nolan Gorman. Guess where Nolan Gorman spends a lot of his time? DHing, playing second base, playing third base when Nolan Arenado's not in there. Guess who else has been DHing to preserve them? Paul Goldschmidt's been DHing. Nolan Arenado's been DHing. So you clog up that DH spot, and you could plug anybody into the DH and get similar production that Willson Contreras is going to give you. The value of signing Willson Contreras to that deal was the fact that he was going to catch for you. And if you're punting on that 23 games in, that is an institutional catastrophic failure. Now, to be fair to Mozeliak, it sounds like there's a little bit of uncertainty as far as how long this is going to be a thing. So the quote here that I'm going to bring up right now, according to Yahoo, here's the quote from John Mozeliak. So he said, and there were reports that Contreras was going to be in the outfield. So he says, he starts off here, we won't have him in the outfield. I know that came out yesterday, but after talking with him, it's basically going to be more in the DH role right now. And there's light at the end of the tunnel to get back behind the plate. I don't anticipate Contreras in the outfield unless there's some sort of emergency reason. Everything was moving quickly yesterday. A lot of things were getting out there. His hope is he gets a chance to get behind the plate. That's what we're going to work towards. So if that is the plan, to where he eventually does go back behind the plate, then that's good. But now, how you have the roster now, right now, is extremely messy, and this move makes it even messier because now you have 3 catchers. Trace Barrera comes up, and nothing against Trace Barrera, but he's another one of these guys where you're thinking, I mean, this guy was probably never in your plans to ever come up this year, I wouldn't think, but now he's getting an opportunity, and hey, good for him. So this is right now, in this moment, a catastrophic mistake from John Mozeliak. And I put out a Twitter thread. You list off moves that aren't trading for Nolan Arenado, that aren't trading for Paul Goldschmidt. There's a lot of terrible moves that you failed to put players around franchise players like Yadier Molina and Adam Wainwright, other players that were here. You failed to put players around those guys. You signed Mike Leake. You signed Brett Cecil. You signed Andrew Miller. Your handling of minor leaguers has been bizarre, to say the least. The whole Jordan Hicks saga. I know he pitched well the other day. Jordan Walker now. You remember Stephen Piscotty and Randall Grichuk. They put way too much faith in those guys. Trade away Randy Arozarena. Marcell Ozuna trade. I mean, we could go on and on and on down the list of moves that you've made that have hurt this ball club. So as much as I never advocate for anybody to lose their job, but it really feels like Mozeliak has been out of touch, aside from, I mean, these amazing moves that somehow he pulls out like a magician out of his hat. I don't know how he made the Nolan Arenado trade happen, but I'm so thankful that he did. But if you look at just about everything else, it's been a whole lot of terrible mixed in there. So I think Mo needs to go. I think they need some, like, he's been in that position for a long time now. So I think they need a fresh perspective because, and not to mention this is the 3rd year now where the Cardinals pitching has been average to below average. 3rd year. And he's done nothing to fix it. So that's my long-winded way of saying the Willson Contreras thing, if this becomes a thing for the whole season, which it very well could, is just that it's the straw that broke the camel's back on the fact that Mo needs to go.
That's the first time that I've heard from you the idea that, that's the first time that I've heard that there's a possibility of Contreras still catching. Like, it seemed a week ago when they made that move that was not going to be a thing. Okay. But here's the thing that I wonder about in regards to all of that. You said it's a 5-year deal, correct?
Yeah.
So if he doesn't go back to catching, is he a 5-year DH, or will they use him as a potential trade chip to some other team to bring in some quality pitching, which it seems that they need, right? I mean, it was no secret what you were getting in Willson Contreras. It was just not a secret. And but the word that, if we were to take one of those word bubble, word cloud things in your rant just a second ago about the bad moves of Mozeliak and all of that, you know what the number one word that I heard in all of that was, and I heard it again and again and again? Plan. There seemingly doesn't seem to be a plan for your Cardinals. Now, with the Cubs, as a Cubs fan, I feel like there's a plan. Like, there is a plan in place. We are acquiring prospects as much as we can, while at the same time we're acquiring individuals who can help us win now. Win now, build for the future.
Yeah,
There's
it's
actually a
beautiful.
theme. If you
It's
watch, if
it's
you
so
watch,
refreshing. It's
yeah,
so
if you watch,
refreshing to see.
yeah, if you watch a Chicago Cubs game, just take a look at the phrase that you see plastered all over the ballpark. Next starts here, right? That's the theme this year. That the Cubs have been coming up with, and I don't know if all Major League Baseball teams are doing this or not. I mean, I think I've seen some themes from other teams, but it seems like there is a almost like schools do, like there's a theme this year, and the theme is, like our school is kind of Top Gun because Top Gun was the big movie of the summer last summer. Well, they come out with the theme, the hype video, all that kind of stuff. That's the plan. That is the plan. It's almost like the mission or the vision of what's going to happen. What are we after this year? I am very happy with what the Cubs are doing in regards to the plan. It's why I can talk about guys like Christopher Morel, Owen Casey, Pete Crow Armstrong, Brennan Davis. We know all these names now because we know that there's a plan for the future. Then we can go, but what about now? Okay, well, let's talk about now. We have young players. I think this is a big difference between what the Cardinals are doing and what the Cubs are doing. We've talked about, the St. Louis AARP group or whatever. You've got some aging players on that Cardinals team. Now, obviously, you've got some prospects too, and you talk about them just like I talk about the Cubs prospects. But there seems to be more of a plan in regards to the Cubs organization. We talk about our current guys, Cody Bellinger, Trey Mancini, Seiya Suzuki. All of these guys are in their 20s. Nico Horner, Patrick Wisdom, Ian Happ. We're signing guys to extensions. These guys have some time to play yet. Whereas, the Cardinals, it's not going to be that long. How old are your first and third basemen? Yeah, they're great. They're great. But how many more years do they have? We've talked about that before. This is a young man's game. Christopher Morel, who just gets called up, he's going to be a phenomenal baseball player. He's a young dude who hit a 2-run home run in a clutch situation yesterday into the upper deck, and he's you got to call him a prospect too, right? We've never really talked about him being a prospect. Like, I don't remember going, oh, hey, we got this young guy coming up in the Cubs organization who's going to be going through AA, AAA, and his name is Christopher Morel. I don't remember that conversation. Christopher Morel seemingly showed up at Wrigley Field last year, and we were all like, who's this dude? He's pretty athletic. He's a pretty good ball player. He can swing the bat a little bit. His defense is all right. And then this year he didn't start off, it was like, well, where's Morel? That seems strange. And then he's tearing it up down there, and now he gets called up. But that seemingly that's all part of the plan too, right? The international signings that the Cubs have made that a lot of people aren't really talking about. I think those international signings are a big deal in Major League Baseball right now. And it's kind of the under the layer, kind of the underground piece of what happens that we don't hear about a lot of those guys, but they're going to be contributors like Christopher Morel, right? I mean, we didn't hear a whole lot about him beforehand, or at least I didn't. And now he's going to be a contributor. So that's fun to watch. But the plan, I am satisfied with that we have a plan in place. I don't know about St. Louis. It just seemingly like, what is the plan with Willson Contreras? Yeah, he might be back in that catcher's position sometime. It's almost as if, because I heard the story that when he became a free agent, Yadier Molina sent him a jersey, a Molina jersey or something like that. And that solidified Willson Contreras' thoughts about where he was going to go in free agency, et cetera, et cetera. You almost have to scratch your head and say, did they make this move to make Yadier's legacy seem even grander at Busch Stadium? You know what I mean? You said it just a few minutes ago. Like, they haven't had offensive production at the catcher position. I mean, supposedly we're talking about a future Hall of Famer here in Yadier Molina. In my opinion, looking at the numbers, it'd be interesting to see whether or not those numbers bear that out. You know, if stick him on your chest pad is part of what gets you in there, then I guess he's a Hall of Famer. But I digress. What's the plan for St. Louis? I'm glad Chicago has one.
It does. I completely, I mean, as much as it pains me to disagree with you that the Cubs have a plan, it's very clear to see the Cubs plan because, like you said, they've got a lot of guys on one-year deals, the Hosmers, the Bellingers of the world, right, that come in and plug a role until the guy in the minor leagues is ready. And you can see it, right? They're developing pitchers. They're bringing up prospects to see what they have. I mean, and they're playing really well. I mean, the Justin Steeles of the world pitching great.
Right.
What the Cardinals would do right now for a Justin Steele. And the Cardinals, it's so bizarre because they have a guy into AAA that you think could help them out right now in Matthew Liberatore, but it's almost like they're allergic to bringing him up, yet they'll trot Jake Woodford out there. It doesn't make any sense. Because seemingly this is a win-now team, yet you throw down Thompson to develop him as a starting pitcher for the future. You bring up Jordan Walker at the beginning of the year just to send him down at the first sign of trouble. Like, what are we doing here, guys? Like, exactly, like, what is our plan? And something I wanted to ask you about, Mike, is do we, and all these Cardinal, like we talk about all these Cardinal players, Randy Rosarina, Zach Gallen, Sandy Alcantara, do we need to add Patrick Wisdom to that list of players that have just gotten out of St. Louis? Because look at Patrick Wisdom's production over the last couple years, and I poo-pooed it. I'll admit that I said, oh, just you wait, give him enough time. It's been a while. It's been a long time now that I've been looking at Patrick Wisdom and going, 12 home runs, 23 RBIs, 955 OPS. That's on base plus slugging, ladies and gentlemen. That's pretty good. That's pretty good, as Larry David would say. 1.2 wins above replacement. That's a pretty good ball player. I don't know what his defensive metrics are right off the bat, but offensively, and Chicago basically got him for free.
Thank you, St. Louis, for Patrick Wisdom. Who is the leader? Who are the top five home run hitters in Major League Baseball right now? Who are the top five?
He's got to be one of them. He
was leading the major leagues in home runs, and I know it's early. We keep saying that, don't we? How many games are we into the season?
We're a quarter of the way through the season, I think.
Well, I mean, it's got to be
40, right?
40.
Tampa Bay is 30-10 right now, so we're 40 games in.
Yeah. So I mean, it's, at some point we're gonna have to say, it's not early anymore.
No, it's not. It's not early anymore, and this is what no plan does, and this is what having a seemingly log jam at positions does, and this is why, like I said, get a slogan going. Put on your picket signs. Mo needs to go. I mean, how many bad roster decisions does it take to get you fired in St. Louis? Like, seriously, look at all the great players that came through the Cardinals system. Do other teams look at the Cardinals and go, okay, they have a really good player in their minor league system. We have a aging veteran that we'd like to get rid of. Hello, St. Louis. Can we, can we get this really good player out of your minor league system? How many times has Tampa Bay traded with us? Seriously. I would just stop answering the phone if Tampa Bay's calling you, because Tampa Bay's doing something right there. Holy cow. I don't have their payroll pulled up, but they're near the bottom in payroll every year. So, wow. Tampa Bay. I mean, can we say enough good things about them? But this is not a Tampa Bay show.
Right.
So good for Tampa Bay. But this is why Mo needs to go, man. How many times can you screw up with these players? It's great you have all these players, and most organizations would kill for the. I mean, would the Cubs swap, players with the Cardinals right now? I think so. I think if you look at farm system, if you look at talent at the major league level right now, aside from starting pitching, which is a huge deal, it's St. Louis, right? But time and time again, you don't make. Well, you wouldn't want Nolan Arenado and Paul Goldschmidt and Willson Contreras and offensively.
Would the Cubs like swap teams?
Yeah.
Is that what you're saying?
Yeah,
I don't think so. I don't think so.
You're crazy. Oh, you're crazy.
Why would we want to be in last place in the division? 25%, literally 0.2469, 1358 way through the season. That's where we are, 25% through the season.
Well, I'm talking like long term though. Like we have Nolan Arenado on a cost control deal. We have Goldschmidt for the next couple years. We have Donovan on his, I guess you call it his rookie deal. Same thing with Lars Nootbaar. Same thing with Tyler O'Neill. Same thing with Dylan Carlson. So, like we have Willson locked up. So with our position players, we know what we have, which is for the long term. Like that's not something really the Cubs can say aside from Ian Happ and Nico Horner, right?
And Dansby
Swanson, yeah.
And Matt Mervis.
Okay. So you're saying that you would prefer your guys to St. Louis's guys.
And Patrick Wisdom. I'll take our guys every day. I'll take our guys. I like this team. I like this team. I really do.
Well then, then all right, we'll agree to disagree there. But my point is you have the Cardinals have so much talent. It seems like every year we're talking about how much talent they have, and it just is a disaster as far as managing the talent, right? But other organizations, maybe not the Cubs, according to Mike Jones, but other organizations would kill to have Jordan Walker's the number 4 prospect in all of baseball. Right. So, coming up, some of these guys, Dylan Carlson was up there too. Some organizations would kill for some of these guys, yet St. Louis finds a way to trade away the wrong guy, promotes Steven Piscotty. Nothing against Piscotty or Grichuk or any of these guys. They just seem to make the wrong move more time, alarmingly a lot. Lot.
The good. It's the Cardinal way. It's the Cardinal way.
So Jack Flaherty made some interesting comments. Derek Gould was asking him, question about his fastball velocity, and I just wanted to address this real quick. Jack Flaherty.
Is his middle initial A?
What do you mean, Jack A. Flaherty?
Go ahead.
I see what you did. I see what you did there. That was not, clever really. But so the quote, right? Derek Gould asked him about his fastball velocity, and Jack kind of snapped back at him. To me, I think it was a slight overreaction of the media. Go figure, the media overreacts. Jack looked tired. He looked disappointed. He looked frustrated. You're asking him a question right after the game. Now, does he need to be professional? Yes. And was Jack Flaherty borderline unprofessional? Yes, he was. So here's the quote. The next time somebody wants to mention the velocity on my fastball, I'm not going to answer that question. I'm going to play with the velocity of my fastball based on what the game calls for. I get outs if I need to get outs at 95. I'm going to play with it. I've always played with it. I've thrown freaking fastballs at 87 before in games when I've been at my best. I'm just saying, because y'all want to make a big deal out of it, and I'm tired of it, and I'm not. It's so ridiculous. I'm going to go for what the game calls for, and that's part of pitching. So if you want to ask, you don't understand the art of pitching. I'm going to go with what the situation calls for and what the game calls for. You have to manage pitch count and manage the way that the game goes. There are certain times when you're up, and now you're going to start seeing 94, 95, 96. Certain times you might need to be like, okay, dude, the situation calls for you to adjust. That's how the game goes. And then Derek Gould asked, we don't know that unless we ask. And then Jack Flaherty said, well, then you don't understand pitching. And then there was a classic awkward back and forth between Derek Gould and Jack Flaherty.
Do you want to repeat that?
Where he said, "Do you want to
You
repeat
want to say
that?"
that again?
Like Derek Cool's been covering the team for years and probably knows a thing or two about pitching, I would assume. And so
Because he's a
obviously
reporter.
he took offense to that. And yeah, and I think Jack backed down a little bit. I think Jack knew that he crossed the line. But again, I think I don't know. I didn't make too much out of this. I tweeted, it looks like Jack's tired and frustrated right now. And you asked him a question that triggered him. And I didn't even think that he was all that disrespectful. Was he borderline like unprofessional? Sure. But again, you're talking about a player who's frustrated and who's not performing well. And that's what happens sometimes when you poke the bear.
Yeah. Well, I think it's the frustration. It's the clubhouse frustration of the St. Louis Cardinals right now, right? And
Yeah.
for you guys, that builds on itself. I mean, that's we say it in kind of jokingly, tongue in cheek, the Cardinal way. I mean, I say it that way, but in the moment right now, it is. I mean, it truly is, and I think that interview reflects that.
Yeah.
That right now, it is the Cardinal way. It's a mentality. It's a culture. It's at some level, it's like that frustration. I don't know if I've said it on this show before or not. I have a good friend of mine who always says losing makes you question how you wipe your right.
Yeah.
And that I think you see that reflected in that. Like, what kind of question is that? Like, I'm going to do, I know what that frustration it has a tendency to ooze out when things are not going well. And I think that's what you saw in that interview. It's been really interesting to me that you have not yet seen that from Willson Contreras.
Oh, he handled that like a pro.
Yeah.
The whole situation, like that gives me faith that Willson Contreras is going to come around and be like, that gives me faith in the guy they signed. And I think that's a lot of times we miss that.
Mm-hmm.
But going back to Jack, so I'm not as concerned about Willson Contreras as I'm concerned about the guy in the president's chair and GM chair for the Cardinals who seemingly has made mistake after mistake. But back to Jack Flaherty for a second. You got to remember too, like this season's a huge season for Jack Flaherty because he's a free agent after this year.
Right.
So every bad outing is magnified. Other teams are looking at him to see if they're going to be interested in Jack Flaherty in 2024. Are the Cardinals going to be interested in bringing back Jack Flaherty next year? It certainly seems with a lot of people around the city, don't think he's a good fit here. And to that, I say, I don't agree with that at all. I think Jack Flaherty, if you look at some of his comments that he made before the season about the reverence and respect that he has for Adam Wainwright, I think Jack Flaherty would enjoy being a long-term Cardinal. But I don't know if the fans and sometimes the reporters really I just think sometimes we overreact, and I think this was a situation where I'm not on either side really, but what I saw from Jack Flaherty, again, I'll go back to it, was a player who was tired, frustrated, and he was asked the wrong question at the wrong time. Does he regret saying it? Probably. He probably wishes he could have it back. But I think we made too much out of it, to be honest. Like he said the thing that you probably shouldn't say to a reporter is like, you don't understand pitching. And then the reporter clapped back at him. Derek Gould, yeah. Great reporter for the Cardinals. I really enjoy his work. So it was just, I think that's what it was. And I think we can move on now. So
it's interesting though, that's not the first interesting media soundbite that's come out of Cardinals Nation, right? That's had a negative tenor to it. Tyler O'Neill's situation, this situation, I don't know, for the good of the division, you don't like to see that kind of thing, but I'm not going to say it's kind of fun to watch because it's painful in some respects, but as a Cubs fan, it's not disappointing. You know what I mean? Because
No, I know it's
clearly, like you said a moment ago, and like I said, I'm not going to trade our guys away because I love this team. Clearly, there's something funky going on there in St. Louis because you're right. There's talented players. When you look up and down the lineup, when they came to Wrigley Field, it's like, ugh, that this kind of. I hope this goes all right, and then it did. It went all right. Yeah, we lost 2 out of 3, but
I would say
we
that
won the one.
that's like extremely optimistic way of viewing losing 2 out of 3 games.
Well, I mean, we scored more runs.
I think
that is
the most okay. Good thing we don't go by runs scored, but that is an extremely optimistic way of looking at that. That's unbelievable. How somebody.
Wait a minute, we don't go by runs scored. This is the fan graph guy. This is the fans graph guy. We don't go by runs scored. I mean, you're always talking about offensive production.
Last time I checked, we go by wins and losses.
Yes,
that's
we do.
Just me. But
and currently,
one more thing about just the Cardinals' weirdness, and this is according to Bernie Michaelis on the radio. And apologize to Bernie if I'm mispronouncing his name. I might have to reach out to that guy to see if he wants to come on the show. That'd be sweet. But anyway, he said that one of the reasons that Mike Maddox left, and now Mike Maddox, retired. And if you know anything about where Mike Maddox is, he's now the pitching coach for the Texas Rangers. Guess who's managing the Texas Rangers? Bruce Bochy, an old school guy. So one of the criticisms, and again, I think this points back to John Mozeliak, one of the criticisms of the Cardinals and why they had a big staff shakeup. No, their hitting coach is gone, their pitching coach is gone. They're getting a lot of direction on what to do from the front office, from the analytical perspective, and not letting these coaches make the decisions. Can you imagine if John Mozeliak would have walked into Tony La Russa's office and said, "Hey, Tony, this is what we're doing tonight." Can you imagine how that conversation would have ended? I think Tony La Russa's foot would have been shoved up John's ass so far. Like, what? You know what I mean? Like, and Bruce Bochy's the same way. Like, these old school managers are kind of a dying breed of manager. Like, and it's more, I believe this, it's more the people who play, the strategy of the game. And this could be, something that we could defend Rossi with. I mean, who knows where that direction's coming from? Is it coming from the front office? Does the manager have the freedom to make the decisions? I hope so. I sure hope so. But let the managers manage. Let the players play. You get to pick the players and you get to have a say in who gets called up to a certain extent. But that's probably where it should end. And if it's true that this is what the Cardinals are doing now, and that's part of the reason why you lost Mike Maddox, who's a really good pitching coach, then it's just another reason why Mo needs to go. Mo needs to go.
Hey, if you can get that phrase chalked onto the back of the bump in St. Louis, I'd probably get you a new car. Mo needs to go. You know what I mean? Like that can be on the back. Like next starts here is in Chicago. Now Mo needs to go on the padding and all of that kind of thing. Hey, one of the things that I overlooked in terms of, I was just so excited about beating the Twins 6-2 and Christopher Morel's 2-run homer and all that sort of stuff. Do you know who was on the mound against the Cubs yesterday in that game?
I don't.
Sonny Gray, who was at that time 4-0, that was just another exciting piece of the game yesterday because Drew Smiley came out with a quality start. Again, a quality start. Drew Smiley.
Cardinals would kill for a quality start right now.
Right. And so, Gray, the Cardinals put Sonny Gray to work, and or I'm sorry, the Cubs put Sonny Gray to work, and knocked him out of the game, and then went to town against the bullpen. But he's the ERA leader, and couldn't get much going. So that was just another fun element. I hadn't even thought about that actually, like, until moments ago. I was thinking about who was pitching because who we going up against tonight, and then I was like, wait, that Sonny Gray was last night. That's awesome. It didn't register. I only tuned into the last 3 or 4 innings because I had another commitment last night, so I probably missed his outing. Yeah. So, not only are the Cubs, is there a plan? The Cubs are playing well against quality pitching, which that's a really exciting part of it. And we've got quality pitching of our own. As Smiley said yesterday, it was just an awesome team win. Really excited about this win. We're going up against Sonny Gray, the ERA leader. He was dialed in early in the game. Couldn't get much going, but we kept having good at bats, and we stayed with it. And then at the end of the game, we were able to break it open. Smiley's 4-1. He only allowed 2 runs in 6 innings, 4 hits, 1 walk.
I keep saying it. This is, and I hate to say this, but guess that's basically what the Cardinals used to be able to do, was to find a Drew Smiley. And you're like, how is this guy going 6 innings and giving up 1 run every time? Right. And he's, is it that time of the show?
Well, listen, can I speak? Can I just, I don't want to be grandiose.
I thought you had a heart out.
I do. I don't want to be vain or anything like that either, but I just want to go back to when it wasn't baseball season. And I think it might have been me. I don't know. It might have been you, but somebody was saying the Cubs pitching staff is underrated. They are underrated. Going back to September of last year, going back to August of last year. I've got to go back and look at those numbers. But yes, it's that time of the show.
It's the Dixon's Baseball Dictionary segment of the show where Mike pulls out his dictionary.
All right. The dictionary is out. We're on page 237. 237.
I'm glad you brought your dictionary to the dictionary segment this time.
Yeah, I didn't bring it last time, I guess. We were on the road, and I thought about bringing it. But, dude, this thing, it weighs like 13 pounds. It's like,
I know.
You put it on do you put it in your check-in? Do you put it in your luggage? Do you put it in your carry-on? What do you do? I don't know what you do in that regard. But it's a big book. And it's written by a guy named Paul Dixon, who hopefully someday we'll have on the show, this guy right here. Yeah.
No, you showed his face. Oh, is that a real picture of Paul Dixon? Do you think?
I don't know. I think so.
That is, if so, that is the most amazing picture that you would actually like. I've never that is quite the pose, man. You're not, your glasses are on top of your head, like you're some kind of stud. You have a pen because, of course, you do, because you wrote this dictionary, and. The tie, is
to me the best part.
Yeah.
To me, the best part about it is the glasses really aren't on top of his head. They're like on his forehead. They're not even normally people put them on top of their head. No, they're on his forehead. And no disrespect, because we want to get this guy on the show, because this piece of writing is a classic. It's awesome. On page 237, here it is. Cycle. Single, double, triple,
timely,
dinger. Timely, yeah, right. Single, double, triple, dinger, and not necessarily in that order. Hit by a player in the same game. Hitting for the cycle. First use, 1933. Jimmy Fox, athletic slugger, is one of only 6 players in all of Major League history to hit for the cycle. I don't know how many have done it now, 20-some? That is, set a single, double, triple homer in 4 times at bat in 1 game. That was in the Washington Post, September 27th, 1933, by Barry Poppick. And so last night, and I don't know, we even talked about it on the show. I know we talked about it pregame. Cedric Mullins hit for the cycle, the franchise's 12th cycle, literally. And you talked, I can't remember if we were live or not when you talked about the bird bath, and you can't believe the Cardinals. Yeah, okay, we were.
How do we not do that? And now we can't do it now because it'd be cheating, it'd be copying, and that's lame. And you don't want to be lame.
You don't want to be lame. Although I could see that being part of the Cardinals' way. You never know. Fifth inning triple led to the soaking of fans in the 156 seats of Section 86 in the left center field at Camden Yards. So yeah, that awesome. Cedric Mullins hitting for the cycle. So that's the cycle. That's the definition of the cycle.
Have you ever heard, and this is on the same page if you are following along with us, as you should be, go get the Paul Dixon's Baseball Dictionary at a local bookstore near you. Can't find it on Amazon, even though you can. Cut the pie. Cut the pie.
Cut the pie.
Have you seen this? It's on 237 near the top.
Yep.
Cut the pie, to play with flamboyance.
To play baseball.
And I just want to ask you, name, and we'll get out of here, but name one player that cut the pie the best.
One player who cut the pie.
Is it Javi Baez?
Javi Baez. I mean, it will be the biggest cut the pie play ever when he was running the first base and then ran back to home, and the first baseman chased him down there. I think it was the first baseman from Pittsburgh, who's now playing in Japan, and they scored a run. I think it was Contreras scoring the run, and Javi Baez was safe at first after he should have been out by 20 feet. Yeah, he cut the pie on that one. No doubt.
And I have to, if I don't choose this player, I think Cardinals fans would disown me. There's no doubt that Ozzie Smith cut the pie. He played with a flair, a flamboyance, doing the flip, coming out to the field. It was one of the most exciting things. Like, my mom and dad would always point it out to me, like, when he'd do it. So the Wizard, man, what we would do to have that guy back on the field right now, that'd be great.
Hey, what is it, 6 degrees of Kevin Bacon? Here's the 6 degrees of Mike Jones. Mike Jones went to Iowa Western Community College in Clarinda, Iowa. Clarinda, Iowa was home of a minor league baseball team or independent league baseball team where a player by the name of Ozzie Smith played prior to becoming a St. Louis Cardinal.
Yeah.
Kind of cool. I'll tell you another story about Ozzie Smith sometime down the road that I don't know if I've ever told you.
All right. You got to tune in for that.
Absolutely.
Along with baseball. Mike, where can people find you on Twitter? And do you have anything to promote?
Yeah, at Michael Jones IA. My Twitter address is right there. And Long Live Baseball, our Twitter address is right there. 1L, because you don't have enough characters in the thing. And then Long Live Baseball ending in 1L. And the thing that I have to promote is, of course, our Beat the Streak contest, our Beat the Streak group. We have a group on the MLB Play app. And that group, whoever wins that group, if you go on and join our group, is going to win a copy of the Paul Dixon's Baseball Dictionary, and potentially even from Major League Baseball, not us, $5.7 million if you can beat the streak. Currently, our leader in Beat the Streak is Cy Blues at 19. And I've already got a show in the works that'll be coming out probably shortly after this one when Seth puts it out there. My streak currently is at 12. I've got a 12.
When did you put these? I checked when I was creating, literally 20 minutes before the show, when I was creating our show in StreamYard, and it was not in there. It was not. Yeah,
well, it's up there now. I'm telling you, I'm ubiquitous. While we were doing this show, I was doing another show, and I put it in the so you can upload it. Add a thumbnail. It'll be uploaded moments after our show is over.
Are you the real Mike Jones, or are you the AI Mike Jones?
I am.
Have you copied yourself so that you can do a show while you're doing a show?
Ubiquitous.
I don't
baby.
know. I don't know if how do I know that you're the real Mike Jones and that the AI Mike Jones hasn't killed the real Mike Jones and just replaced Mike Jones and his entire family with robots? How do I know you're not a robot?
I guess you don't.
All right. That is the show, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for tuning in on the podcast on YouTube. Don't forget to hit like and subscribe. Do it. Mike's putting out daily content. He's neglecting his family for you. The least you can do is to hit the subscribe button. So do that. Even if he is a robot, he's a robot that's producing content for you. We might have to look into this. If that robot might be wanted for murder, we might have to contact the authorities. But in the meantime, hit the like button and subscribe to the channel for more Long Live Baseball content. And a big thank you to our subscribers and the people who like and view the videos, because we are up over 200 subscribers. Not in this wildest dreams of this podcast. And I know we've got a long way to go here, but this was a thing that Mike and I started just because we wanted to talk more about baseball, and we wanted to create a conversation about the best game on planet Earth, and that's baseball, the game that I fell in love with as a kid, and the game that Mike fell in love with as a kid, the magical game that is baseball, and to build this community together as we continue to build it. And we'd love for you to become a part of that conversation. So we can't thank you enough, and don't hesitate to reach out in the comments, DM Mike or I. We always love talking about the great game of baseball, and that's what this channel is all about. That's what this podcast is all about. So we can't thank you, the listener, enough for that. Even if some of you give me grief about talking about the Marcell Ozuna trade too many times, all right? I brought it. Check it off. We're on a winning streak on this podcast. What is that, 3 or 4 shows in a row? The Marcell Ozuna trade is being mentioned, so cross it off your bingo sheets. It's been mentioned now, but thank you to our listeners. You guys are awesome, so we can't thank you enough. And that is the show, ladies and gentlemen. Until next time, go Cardinals.
Let's go Cubs.
And long live baseball.
Long live baseball.
Thank you.
Hey, long live baseball,
Long
baby.
live baseball. Let's
go.
Long live baseball.
Thank you.
You got it.
Right now.
Long live baseball.